Good morning, Predictor Trades family. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody had a great weekend. Well, let's go ahead and dig in. And a quick little review of last week. After a run up the previous week, version of the mean, we had a Monday, Tuesday downtrend, and then Wednesday that CPI data that sent us down pre-market. And then we set up a Wednesday, a Thursday, Friday recovery each day. That brought us back up above the mean and breaking through some trend lines. So I've got some trend lines from the last time we were above the mean, consolidated and sold off. And from there to recent highs, we started to break through overnight. We got right to it on Friday, gapped up, came down to test, and then took off. We're now sitting at trend lines from the two recent highs where we tried to get off of the mean. So here we are again trying to get off the mean and move higher. We have to get through trend line from highs. And directly above, we have the daily 50, which we have not seen in quite some time. And right above that, a key zone, a daily Keltner, and a daily squeeze top. So before I dig into what could unfold this week, let's take a quick look at the economic calendar. Not too much this week until Thursday. We have our jobless claims, our Philadelphia Fed Manufacturing Index, and on Friday we have PMI. So not very much going on in the economic calendar this week, but we do have earnings season going on and a number of names this week. Today, before open, we have Bank of America, Schwab. After the open, we have IBM. Moving into tomorrow, big name after close is Netflix, kicking it off for FANG stocks. This one's going to be big. I actually read an article this morning that was talking about this is a big earnings for Netflix. You know, the last earnings, they reported a loss of 200,000 subscribers, the first time that they've reported that big of a loss in a decade. For this earnings, they projected a potential loss of 2 million subscribers, so 10 times what they lost in the first quarter. Basically, from what I was reading, as long as they come in underneath that 2 million, it could spell good news and upside for Netflix. They did have recent news that they are partnering with Microsoft to work on implementing ads on Netflix, which could be, you know, a pretty big game changer for Netflix to incorporate ads in a free subscription, but, you know, it'll have ads, so it could lead to them getting more subscribers and ad revenue. There's also a small rumor that Microsoft could be considering acquiring Netflix. So at this point, it's just a rumor. There's no confirmation yet. So we'll see what we get. But big one on Tuesday after close. This will set the tone for big tech, you know, as we progress through earnings season. And as ES is getting near a key moving average and squeeze top, wouldn't be surprised that even if it's favorable, Netflix starts a downtrend that carries through other names. Moving on from Netflix, we do have Tesla on Wednesday after close. ASML, little interest there. AT&T, American Airlines, Domino's, don't want to forget about that. So, we've got some banks, we've got some airlines, we've got some tech, we've got some med device, Capital One, Twitter on Friday. So, a lot to look at this week on earnings. And then as we just look at the rest of the month, we find ourselves in this week. As we move on to next week, we have the rest of big tech reporting. Microsoft, Google, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Roku, Intel, Shopify, Qualcomm, Lam Research. So next week is going to be big for the big tech names. Moving into August, AMD, PayPal. We've got some energy and BP and Marathon. AMC. Blah, 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 blah. So, plenty going on the earnings calendar. Now, as we dig into where we could go this week, we are just above the mean. We have the 21, 15, and 8 all down below and stacked together. The 8 and the 15 are finally flipped into a bullish stack. So if we can move higher and pull the 8 and 15 above the 21, we'll be fully in a bullish orientation as far as moving averages go. We are through all of our lower time frame squeezes and just have our higher time frame squeezes to deal with. So let's see. I could foresee, since it's Monday and we are so close and right at our trend line, we could see a continuation day where we continue higher, getting through recent highs to test the daily 50, maybe even getting through that to test the daily Keltner and our zone above and our daily squeeze top. We also have a couple of trend lines there. If we zoom out, just a simple trend line from all of these highs carries us through into the squeeze top. And then from our last big high back in March, the trend line from those highs we will be running into today as well. So there's a lot of magnets to the upside should we get a continuation play where we can come up, test all these things, and start to get an idea if they're actually going to go higher and fire this daily squeeze up, get above 4,000 again, or if we're going to run into all of this, find our sellers that start sending us back down. We are in a wedge, pretty much, right? So we could just as easily hit all of this resistance and slip right back down into the wedge. There we go, sorry. Back to the daily moving averages, our key zone. And back to this 3,800. So those are levels I would be watching to the downside, this zone and moving averages. To the upside, the daily 50 and the zone above with the daily squeeze and the trend lines from highs of this year. Moving on, in Q. you can see from the highs of this year, back in March, that NQ has already gotten through. We slipped back, we got through the previous week, we slipped back to retest, holding 4-hour squeeze and heading back higher above our daily 50. We're also back above this key level, 12,100. So for today, looking for NQ to hold that 12,100. If it slips that, it could just go down to the daily 50 to fill the gap and that psychological 12,000. And as long as those can hold, we can get that continuation of the upside, that first Keltner up above at 250, and the daily squeeze top up at 300 to 500-ish. If we lose the daily 50 and 12,000 back to daily moving averages and kind of the mid-range of last week, right? I'd say the 15 MA right at around 850. Yeah, it kind of cuts that range in half. So, and we also have POC back at 11,800. So should we start to lose things to the downside, 12,100, 12,000, daily 50, we'll tag these moving averages and maybe head back to POC. Might not happen today, it might happen this week after Netflix earnings, we'll see. Ready, don't have the same trend lines drawn, but I can just kind of see by looking that if we connect some, we're probably running into it or going to see it today if we continue to the upside. So let's see if the Ready gets its continuation up through the 50 to first Keltner daily squeeze top and trend line from highs of year. We are on all these names very close. And just like on a week where they want to take things up, they'll make Monday and Tuesday a down day. Sometimes when we have a week where they want to take it down, they make Monday a strong day up and then fade the rest of the week. So let's see if that's what we get today. YM, bit of the same. Pulling up on its daily 50 pre-market. Right above that, key level, 31,800. Daily Keltner, squeeze top. So pretty much every indice telling us the same story. And we have some resistance that we're going to run into. We also have that trend line from the highs of this year, since March, where we are likely to run into resistance, and that psychological 32,000. So it becomes a decision point this week, and as we near that level, for if we want to, if big money wants to change this downtrend and actually start to make its way up to recover, it's going to require getting through this daily squeeze top, this trend line from all those highs, and firing this daily squeeze to the upside. Our third Keltner up is still way below the daily 200. We still have, inflation, recession, all these potential catalysts out there. So we'll have to see, or we come to a decision point where big money is either going to run into all this resistance and turn it back down, or get through and start to show some upside and change of this downtrend that we've been in all year. Apple. Actually, no squeezes in place on Apple. Last week it, led tech pretty much every day, strong to the upside. Friday, just kind of chilled at a key level, 148.9, 150. Gapping above that today, already at its first Keltner. And we have our key zone above for Apple to continue up to drag the market up to its squeeze top. So, to the upside on Apple, definitely watching this key zone for today, this week. Definitely watching this up channel that we find ourselves in. Because if we start to lose it to the downside, lose that pre-market low Friday's high, and start to go back to fill the gap, probably going to that 148.9, 148 in the bottom of this channel. Past that, 144 and daily moving averages. AMD reporting next week. Had a big day on Wednesday, and then just some continuation. And back above the daily 21. So let's see if AMD wants to go back to test the daily 21, since it didn't really tap it. It gapped through it. Retest Friday's high to find some support before continuing higher. Past that, we have daily Keltner above, which will be pulling in on 85. And past that, recent highs on our way back to key level 89.50, where the daily 50 and second Keltner are coming to line up. And they report in 2 weeks. To the downside, if we lose this trend line from lows of last week, which would be going past filling the gap and trying to engulf some of Friday. If we lose that trend line, today or this week, we could start going back to 80 and back to moving averages below. Let's see how it deals with the 20, and if it can push off the 21, and if it can push off of the 21 and make a big run up to the 50 before earnings. Amazon. Hopefully, before anything drops in, we can see that wedge in the price action. Just wedging tighter and tighter, and they report next week. Let's see if Amazon wants to break out of this wedge. It would mean taking out these recent highs, but we do have a daily squeeze there as well. So we could take out these recent highs, run into daily squeeze, and be held back below 120 before earnings next week. And it could easily just stay in this wedge into earnings and slip back to all of the daily moving averages, which are very stacked. You can see on Friday, all stacked in a 30-cent range, and it pushed right off of all of them and carried to the upside. So watch trend line from lows. Should that give out, we could start to see some engulfing back to the daily moving averages for Amazon. BABA. We talked about the last week or two. Just needed to stay in this range near moving averages. It did. Then it took off to the upside in one day from those moving averages straight up to squeeze top. Fade back to moving averages. Bounce up. Now we're trying to gap through this daily squeeze. It will still be intact until it starts to open up and get thinner, looking kind of like it did back here. So let's see if BA is going to get some continuation. It had some news over the weekend of a couple of orders coming through for, 10, 20 of their planes per order. So some good news on new orders, new business, yada yada. But it is approaching that third Keltner. So BA could easily continue up to that 160 But around that third Keltner, we're a little overbought, and it could take a break and come back, which would lend to the downside on the market. Let's see if it can sustain itself above this daily squeeze, push from that second Keltner to third, or if it's going to lose some steam and slip back into this daily squeeze. Cat just living down at that third Keltner, back to moving averages, down to third Keltner, back to moving averages. But it is about to get through resistance from highs. Let's see if Cat can get back north of 180, back over the daily 15. That could start to spell a little bit of upside for Cat. When do they report? 7/29. So it'll be next week. Let's see, moving on. Google. Oh, poor baby Google. Look at her, down at $100. Ugh. Gonna let the dust settle on this one. We are in a wedge. I doubt they're gonna do much. This is the first day at this price. Let's see if it wants to hold these moving averages and take off from them. But not in a rush to play fresh contracts at this new price. So I'm going to leave this one alone for a minute. Jesus. Big day on Friday. Looks like they had a beat on earnings, right? And they're about to start their call, but looks like we've already got our reaction. So, I'll have to look at the numbers, but reaction-wise, it looks like it's favorable. As they shot from daily moving averages where they settled straight on up to the daily 50, and basically in 2 days from daily squeeze bottom to daily squeeze top. Talked about this key 275, this daily squeeze bottom, and when we got near that in price action, we should be looking for longs. Not sure if anyone took the trade, but as you can see, definitely paid off, especially on Friday. So let's see. We are running into that daily squeeze top. We are running into first Keltner in the daily 50. So just like the market, let's see if it wants to push up into that daily squeeze top, maybe up to that second Keltner, or if we're going to run into resistance here and they start a slow fade after a good run up on earnings to come back to some moving averages before heading higher. JPM reported last week. It was not so favorable, but like always, daily squeeze bottom, getting too far down in the Keltners, we're going to get that snapback reaction. Let's see if JPM can get through this trend line from highs, start to head higher through the daily 21, and try to get back to this daily squeeze top. It could kind of be a catch-up trade once it gets through trend line and above daily 21. If GS and everything is pumping up today, there's a little ground here to recover to get JPM up to its daily squeeze top, just like GS is about to hit its daily squeeze top as well. And they report next week. Back at the daily 21, definitely been one of the weaker names in tech, staying underneath its moving averages lately, while other names have been taking off through them to get back to the 50. Let's see if, now that we are starting to push out of some of these squeezes and at the 21, if market's going to see continuation. Meta could continue up through 170 to 175, first Keltner up, daily squeeze top, but it is definitely in a range. So it could stay stuck in that range between 170 and 160. Microsoft. There we go, Microsoft. wedging tighter and tighter. This looks like something from way back, but already gotten through its trend line from March, but then fell back below, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Yeah, Microsoft stuck on all the daily moving averages. It reports next week. So wouldn't be surprised for it to stay stuck in this range of 258, 261, 262. This little 4-point range. But it does report next week. So if we are going to see some upside in the market this week, we could see some rotation into Microsoft, sending it up to this 265. First Keltner is almost there. And above that, 272, where the daily squeeze resides. Netflix, we've talked about already a little bit this morning. As you can see, huge gap above from the last earnings. And whenever Netflix gaps down big on earnings, it's usually a very sideways season following that till the next earnings. It has some good catalysts, some good news with the potential of ads, but it's still just a rumor. They haven't kicked anything off. And with earnings tomorrow, I wouldn't be surprised if Netflix did not much today and just kind of stayed in the squeeze top. Also wouldn't be surprised if it continued up to hit some recent highs and the psychological 200 right before earnings. Because we could see, some profit taking from there back down. But we'll have to see. I'm going to wait till after they report before I start touching it. Yep, NVIDIA. Let's see, gapped through 21 just like AMD. Let's see if it wants to go back to retest 158, 159. It could just stay above 160 pre-market low and just keep on trucking up to the next Keltner, or the first Keltner up 166. The daily 50, which will be around 168. And the daily squeeze top around 172 on NVIDIA. And NVIDIA doesn't report till later in August, if I remember. Yeah, August 24th. So we got plenty of time. We'll get through AMD earnings so that we'll have a little better idea of where they might take NVIDIA. QQQ. Just taking a quick look here. And, you can draw same trend lines to find that we are starting to get through pre-market and push off of them. Starting to slip back a little. So let's see if QQQ can hold the daily 50 or Friday's highs around 292. To 293.5. Let's see if we can hold that little zone from the highs and daily 50 to try to push higher through first Keltner and daily squeeze top, which sits right up at 300, 298. If we start to lose the highs from Friday, which lined up well with the highs from Tuesday, right around 292, should we start to lose those, we'll probably slide back to daily moving averages, stacked around 288. Roku reports next week, but with Netflix reporting tomorrow, we could see a sympathy trade in Roku this week. So if Netflix goes well and there's a good reaction, you could technically play Roku, Sympathy, picking up a call or put or whatever before earnings. But as you can see, it is just wedging tighter and tighter on all of these daily moving averages. So let's see if it goes the same way as a lot of the other names that we saw wedge on daily moving averages and then blast up off of them. Let's see if Roku's going to do the same. It's probably not going to do anything until Netflix reports. So, just going to move on. I'm going to glaze over shop. Snowflake reports end of August, August 24th, same as NVIDIA. And it's had some good news catalysts lately. It's gotten up over its daily 50 and moving averages, but it's pulling up on trend line from highs of year. So not a ton of interest until it gets over 160, 165. And then it could be some interesting upside play. Let's just move on. SPX. So on SPX, still have a gap to fill to the upside. We technically, geez Louise, we just have another gap to the upside. Let's just bump this. Really? What in the world? Sorry. Trying to fix this. There we go. We've got another gap to the upside. That's up around that 39.75 up to 40.15-ish. We have this gap to the upside to deal with today as well. It looks like we will be opening potentially right at it. This gap to the downside got filled. This one did not. I'd say that this got filled. So as we look at SPX, we do have a daily squeeze that started to form last week. And not shockingly, the bottom of that daily squeeze is at our lower gap fill zone. The top of that daily squeeze is right up near our next gap fill zone. So, for today, we could be opening in the middle of this gap fill. We might go back to fill that gap, which would be going back to 38.60, where the daily 21 sits. We could easily gap up, blast through and fill this gap from last week. Hit our key zone above with the daily 50, daily squeeze, maybe even as far as tapping this gap before heading back down to fill the gap that we are forming today. So let's see if they want to be strong out the gate, fill this gap, hit these zones and everything, and then fade back through this gap to fill the gap we're having, the gap up, and get back to daily moving averages. SPY. I'm sure it will look very similar. Yep, daily 50, first Keltner up, daily squeeze, all up at a key level, 395.8. Let's see if we want to go back to test highs from last week at around this 386 and also 387. If 386, 387 can hold us up, we could continue through pre-market high, recent highs, which span around that 390 up to 392, where now that daily 50 has come to catch up. It's not by coincidence that, we hit a high and then mess around long enough for that daily 50 to catch right up with that high. So that we will go to test both of them at the same time. Let's see, Tesla, and then VIX, and we'll wrap it up. So Tesla earnings this week. As you can see, it has definitely been very range bound. So long so that the daily, this is a 4-hour squeeze. Yeah. No, I'm sorry, that's the daily. So that the daily squeeze has now caught up to our ranges. We've basically been bouncing from that 744 and that 657 back and forth, right? Back and forth. So let's see on Tesla. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised with as close as it is to that 744 to run up and hit it. Maybe even the squeeze top around 760, 750, where that first Keltner is, before fading back down for its earnings report. And we'll see how that earnings report goes. It could send Tesla up through this daily squeeze, back north of 800, and start a march higher. Tesla does have the potential stock split coming in August. They will vote in August, and then we will know if they're going to split. But wouldn't be surprised for Tesla to stay in this range until it reports, and then we'll see. Oh, let's get on VIX. Here we go. So VIX on Friday rejected all those daily moving averages back down to this low at 24.5. And actually, look at that. I didn't even notice this on Friday. Oh, just about tapped that daily 200, which it has not seen in quite some time. Let's see if that's going to cause a bounce that sends VIX right back up to moving averages, or right back to 27, engulfing Friday, which would send the market back down to its moving averages. Or let's see if VIX is going to come back down to fill this little gap, retest 24.5, retest this daily 200, which now sits inside of 24. And we have a daily squeeze bottom and key level right below that. So we could see that continuation on the upside for everything to hit its daily squeeze top. It would send VIX down to its daily squeeze bottom and this key 2333, which we have not tested in a long time. Way back in March, we got below 20. And not since around April 21st-ish have we tested this 23.3. Got close. Started the next sell-off, got close. So let's see if it starts the next sell-off or if we actually lose it to the downside, which would allow some of those squeezes on the market to fire to the upside. But that's about it. Hopefully this helps everybody this week and today. Thank you for tuning in. Good luck, and we will see you in the chat.